Hey, good evening. How are you all today? Welcome to American Reversion. It's been quite a day, hasn't it? Quite a several days with all this mess going on up in Chicago with the Dems acting crazy and all. Did you watch? Did you watch what's her name, Kamala? You watch her speech last night? I didn't. I was going to, but I watched the Chiefs and it ran long and that was a lot more interesting. I had a pretty good idea how it was going to go, and when I watched a few minutes of a playback today, yeah, was about it. It was just however many minutes she was up there of idiocy and emotion and lies and hate and all that. And it brings to the question: are these people stupid or are they evil? And of course, the answer is they're both. And I'll tell you that the ones at the top, they're not stupid. They're not stupid at all. They're smart, but they realize how stupid their followers are, and the evil of the leadership uses the evil of the followers to bring about what they want, and it's coming, and we got a fight on our hands. That's what I want to talk about today. Before we get in, by the way, I just got done watching Bobby Kennedy's speech. I want to talk about that in a minute. Then I want to talk about Dana Bash, the CNN anchor, talking about how they've brought in Tim the phony and Imhoff, Kamala, whatever, her husband, to attract all the soy boys, all those men who are not testosterone laden like we are, right? And man, I tell you, there's a bunch of them out there. And I want to talk about the fact that the Muslim women have abandoned Kamala, and it seemed like there was something else that I'm going to get to here in a minute. Oh yes, we need to queer our nuclear weapons program. Have you heard about that? You know what that is? Queering the nuclear weapons program? Well, before we get to that, a couple of things popped up here to show you what kind of world we're in. In Ohio, I just saw this. In Ohio, a woman and her boyfriend. Obviously, I couldn't be her husband because the husband's long gone if there ever was one. I want you to put yourself in the position of this little 6-year-old boy. A woman and her boyfriend punished her 6-year-old boy by handcuffing him and then setting a pit bull on him. Yeah, let that sink in for a minute, okay? He's alive. He survived. There ought to be a special, I'm sure there's a special place in hell for these people, but there ought to be a special punishment for these people. Did you all read my books? I forget which book it's in. I think it's in either the 6th or the 7th book. Might have been the 5th. I don't know. But one of the things that Jim Wyatt was going to do, he was going to, because it came about that they were having to deal with some people who were acting improperly in the world, and to such an extent that Jim felt it was probably necessary to have special punishment. So he was going to dig a hole out in the middle of Kansas, a very deep hole, very big hole, that when people did something of a heinous enough type of crime, they were just going to put them down. They were going to lower them down in this hole, throw them some trash to eat, leave them open to the elements, and kind of allow them to become, and I think this might be a good answer. I'd be happy. I'm sure that some Kansas farmer would be happy to sell us some of his wheat field for us to go out there and dig a big hole in there. And when you have people like this out there, just dump them in that hole. Throw them some trash to eat, keep them alive. We don't want to kill them. We want their suffering to be sufficient. And and then also allow them to be a kind of a tourist attraction, right? That people can go out there and see what happens to people who act like this. It would be a great deterrent. And also maybe take bus loads out from the state pen every now and then to say, once your behavior crosses a certain line, here's your final stop, boys, and maybe take young juvenile delinquents out there and show them that. I know there used to be a program called Scared Straight. It actually worked in some occasions, and so anyway, you could people could go out there and pay admission to go out and look at these people that were in this hole for the rest of their lives because they'd done such horrible things, and they could read what, just like a national park, there could be a sign. We could read what this person did, what this animal did, and people could there'd be stacks of rocks replenished every day. People could throw rocks at them and maybe rent pellet guns and let them hey, I think that would be appropriate for a woman and who allowed her boyfriend, and she participated in handcuffing her 6-year-old boy and setting a pit bull on him. You think? I think so. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, for those who are always saying how things are getting worse and worse and worse, and I say, hey, things are getting better in the Second Amendment areas. In many cases, in Kansas and Wichita, the location, not Wichita, but Kansas, the location of my new hole-in-the-ground prison, U.S. judge tosses a machine gun possession case, calls the ban unconstitutional. What he has to say here: a federal judge has dismissed charges against a Kansas man for possessing a machine gun, saying prosecutors failed to establish that a federal ban on owning such weapons is constitutional. How about that? That was basic to this. Have you all ever read? Well, I've got it up here. Let me see. Unintended Consequences. Have you ever met? Stay right there. I'll be right back. Have you ever read this book? If you haven't, you should. There are several books that I tell people they are must reads. Of course, the Bible is number one. The second is Atlas Shrugged. And this is the third, Unintended Consequences by John Ross. I don't know if you can get it anymore. It's probably pretty expensive if you can, but it's worth the price. If you want to read it, it is something. You should read it. All of these gun laws are unconstitutional. And you know what? We are winning. We are pushing back against us, are winning. Do you know why we're winning? Because of political and legal action. Not those guys that come on these channels every now and say, out of my cold dead hands, they're never going to take my gun. I'm going to give it back to them one bullet at a time. Those idiots, right? They never do anything. They're big talkers. Nobody pays attention to them. They talk that way because nobody has ever paid attention to them. For anybody wondering, we have been making great strides in reclaiming our God-given constitutional rights, such as the second. Now we got to work on the first, right? We got to work on the First Amendment because we have been losing that. I'll read the second sentence here. The decision by U.S. District Judge John Brooms in Wichita on Wednesday appeared to mark the first time a court has held that banning machine guns is unconstitutional, after the conservative majority U.S. Supreme Court in 2022 issued a landmark ruling that expanded gun rights. That was the Bruin decision. And so if anybody thinks that politics doesn't matter, that was because of the justices that Donald J. Trump, this guy right here, the justices that he appointed, and were able to be confirmed because of politics. Okay, let's get to the meat. No, there are several other things I want to talk about. Let's see here. Well, okay. Let me start with the funniest one first. The Biden-Harris Department of Energy official. What is her name? This is a Fox story. Hannah Grossman wrote this. She says she calls for a queering of nuclear weapons as part of the radical DEI agenda. Let's see. A recent hire at the Nuclear Security Wing of the Department of Energy has previously called for disarmament policies which reduce or eliminate nuclear weapons, arguing that advancing queer theory. Any of you know what queer theory is? It's a new one to me. It's not a theory that I care to study. I'll just be honest about that. But queer theory apparently is essential to that agenda as well as important to America's national security. Let's read just another sentence or so here and see if she explains this to us. Okay, so Snana Nair is her name. She's been appointed as Special Assistant at the National Nuclear Security Administration. Nair believes in eradicating purported white supremacy in the nuclear field, as well as queering nuclear weapons. Okay, now it's being used as a verb, right? I still not getting it. Queering nuclear weapons as part of a diversity, equity, and inclusion push that she believes is essential for deterring threats to nuclear energy facilities in the United States. Is she saying that, now if I called somebody a queer, which I never would, it would be hate speech. But if they say it, it's okay. So I'm not quite sure how to proceed on this. I need to tippy toe in here a little bit. So she says, finally, queer theory, again, does anybody know what that is? Queer theory informs the struggle for nuclear justice and disarmament. Where do they learn to talk like this? Ivy League schools, probably. Queer theory, she continues, helps to shift the perception of nuclear weapons as instruments for security by telling the hidden stories of displacement, illness, and trauma caused by their production and testing. Okay, there you have it. There's your queer theory for you for tonight. Feel free to leave it in the comments if you can explain to me what in the world queer theory is. Or don't. If you don't want to go down that road, I fully understand. Okay. Now in keeping with that, getting away from white supremacy and getting away from the patriarchy and the hatred for the white male and other males. There were other males that were a part of the building of our world, but for the most part, white males who built every single thing you can see. Everything you live in, everything you work in, designed it, built it, conceptualized it, all the buildings, all the houses, all the cars, all the motorcycles, all the everything, including all of the inventions for the most part. Not all, but 98.37. I just made that up, but it's closer. Of everything that we use that have made life better. On behalf of all of the white males who did it, you're welcome. But we can't have that. So we're going to explain. Dana Bash informed us that I won't call it the queering of it because I'm not sure how, if I'm proper in saying that. Shall we say the soying of American politics? Well, the soy boys and soy males. Well, I'll just read what she has. So CNN's Dana Bash, believe is this a Breitbart? Yeah, this is a Breitbart story. Said Wednesday on her network's coverage of the Democrat National Convention that the Harris-Walz campaign is tailoring their message to appeal to men who are not testosterone-laden. Now, for all you men out there who are testosterone-laden, and all of you women who love us being that way, I'm not sure what the hell that means, except that we are men. So apparently, if we now what she should have said, appeal to males who are not men. Okay, instead of saying men who are not testosterone laden, she should have said appeal to all the men who are all the males. All the males who are not men. So I've corrected that. Okay, let me read what she says here. Okay, you're gonna love it. Bash said, yes, there is the gender gap and the idea that for the last month the Democrat Party has been rallying around a woman at the top of the ticket. The only other time they did this was in 2016. And it has been noted or noteworthy to see how they are learning about what to do, and how to confront Donald Trump as the opponent to a woman. 2016 and now is very different campaigns. I don't know if she misspoke or if that was a typo or it's grammatically incorrect. 2016 and now is very different. It is not is, it's are very different campaigns. Very different female candidates, but they're doing so in trying to put forward a male figure, Tim Walz being one of them. Tim, no balls Walz, right? No footballs. That's, of course, what I meant because, of course, they're calling him coach, right? Well, we'll talk about his coachdom in just a second. Doug Emhoff last night, who can speak to men out there who might not be the sort of testosterone-laden, otherwise known as men, gun-toting kind of guy who wants to listen to Hulk Hogan and the kind of players that came out at the RNC. Or they might want to listen to that, but in addition, understand that it's okay to be a man, comfortable in his own skin. Let me see. Let me test my skin. Yeah, pretty damn comfortable in here. Who supports a woman? I support a woman. I support a woman. I would support a woman to be president of the United States, but she can't be an idiot, okay, and she can't be evil. I was a great fan of Margaret Thatcher. Golda Meir did a heck of a job, right? Boudica. Who of you are familiar with the Celtic war chief Boudica? Yeah, there are a few women who can do it, but for the most part, don't. Okay, that is something they're really trying to work on with male voters beyond the base. So host Jake Tapper chimes in, and he says, we were talking about this earlier, different definitions of masculinity in 2024, and what we saw at the Trump convention, which was, as you know, somebody said it, testosterone with Kid Rock and the ultimate fighting champion guy and Hulk Hogan. He doesn't even know who Dana White is. And that's okay. If you don't know who Dana White is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make you a bad person. It means that UFC is not your thing, which is fine. UFC, I don't follow it. I don't enjoy watching fighting, to be honest. But you know what? I can fight if I have to, and probably most of you can too, and that's what makes a man. However, we're dealing now with an entire generation, and perhaps 2 generations, of males whose testosterone has been depressed so much through all the poisons in their food and the plastics that they've drunk their water out of, that they hardly know what a man is anymore. You know, it's skinny jeans, it's understanding, it's getting in touch with their feminine side, their female side. I have a female side. She's called Kelly. But they have been trained, and this comes. I'm going to make a video one of these days. I've wanted to for a year, called "I Blame the Men." This goes back to the 60s and 70s when they started making Dad the Doofus in all the commercials and all the sitcoms and everything like that. And you know what? It was, I said at the time, and I got into big fights with this. I got into big arguments with my own mother over this. When I said this is all part of a plan to demean and diminish the role of men. Oh, it is not. Can't you take a joke? Yes, it is. And we've seen the result of it now. This was all planned. It's the communist plan. They have, the one threat to them are men who will stand up against it. And there are some of us, but they have done away. I mean, what percentage of males can't get into the military now because they're either drugged up or they're too fat? Is that okay for me to say, or should I say, what is it? Size challenged? Okay, size challenge? Yeah. Well, they wouldn't be that size if they weren't fat. And that comes from a lazy lifestyle. It doesn't come from, well, some of it does come from chemicals. Some of it does come from all these additives. It kind of, predisposes them to this. But then a lot of it goes back to the fathers themselves, and it's what has become of the American man? The American man that built this country. So anyway, so they are, that's what they're doing with that. Now, apparently, the Muslim slash Palestinian slash Hamas women have withdrawn their support from Kamala. Oh, I should wrap up that previous thought. So they're going after all the soy boys. And there's plenty of them. There are plenty of them out there just waiting for their wives to tell them who to vote for. You know, pretty soon we're going to be entering the Christmas light season. And some of you know, some of you might not know that we own a Christmas light business. And so every year we will go out and we'll have people call, new people call, and they will say, hey, we'd like you to put up our Christmas lights. I said, okay, I'll come by your house, give you a bid. And so I go over there and I look at them and I chat with them and I tell them, how much it's going to cost. And then, I say, you get your choice of lights. What color lights? You want white, you want red, you want green, you want blue, you want red and white, blue and white, whatever you want. Well, and oh, really? You'll do that? Yeah, we are a top-notch company. And you know what they invariably say when I say, what colors would you like? Now, every year we change the colors. This has a point. Stay with me. Every year we change the colors on our house. Okay. But you know what I do? I always ask Kelly and the kids, hey, what colors do you want this year? It's a family thing, This year it's going to be the Chiefs colors. It's going to be red and gold, red and yellow and white. Okay. So anyway, usually we're very traditional, fairly traditional, red or white or red and white. But, after 2 Super Bowls, we're going to do the Chiefs colors. And, but you know what so many of the men say? Now let me say this. Let me preface this with this. If it's the woman I'm talking to, I'll say, what color do you want? She'll say, I think I'd like all white. All right, you got it. Or I think I'd like all red. Or I think I'd like red and white. They say, okay, you got it. You know what 80% of the men will say, if I'm just talking to the guy, they'll say, well, I don't know. I better find out what the boss wants. What? I better find... Now, see, that's different than saying, let me ask my wife what she would like. Because I'll ask Kelly, what would you like? It doesn't matter to me. No, that's different than saying, I better find out what the boss likes. And then they'll look at me and say, you know what they say? Happy wife, happy life. You know what I say to every one of them, and I don't care if it costs me business. I say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I say, that is crazy, because you have just said that half of the people in your marriage, their opinion doesn't matter. I said, think about this instead. Happy spouse, happy house. And I said, it's kind of what I told the preacher who married Kelly and I when he was talking. And I said, look, all I have, because we had to go through one of these stupid counseling sessions. And I said, listen, every good relationship, all you have to do is each person has to be thinking first about what's best for the other person. If everybody does that, if both people do that, everybody's taken care of. But if you've got only one person doing that, thinking about what's best for the other, and that other person thinking about what's best for themselves, then you got 2 people. You got one person running everything. 2 people caring about what is good for one person. Nobody's caring about what's good for the other. Okay, let me get. That was my rant for the day about what's one of the many things that's wrong with the world. So yeah, I blame the men. I'll do another one on that one of these days. Okay, here. On the 3rd night of the Democrat National Convention, the group Muslim Women for Harris released a statement announcing that it was disbanding in response to the Harris-Walz campaign's refusal to allow a Palestinian person to speak on the main stage. Okay. So Ilhan Omar joined the demonstration. Alexander Ocasio-Cortez called in to sit in via FaceTime. And during the sit-in, Muslim Women for Harris pulled their support for the Democrat nominee. Okay, well, good. So she's lost them. She tried to keep them by bringing a waltz on, and it blew up in her face. What do we got here? Oh, yeah. I don't have time to get to this. So I did want to mention this before I go. So I watched RFK's speech. Of great speech. I think his speech is getting better. Now, I disagree with RFK on many major issues. But I tell you what, I enjoyed listening to his speech because I've always enjoyed listening to the Kennedys. They are smart. They're actually smart, unlike the dumb people that speak nowadays. After listening to Harris, just listening to intelligent words strung together was a treat, right? Well, he has suspended his campaign, and he's thrown his support to Trump. Now, here's the thing. It's going to be interesting, and I think he's going to bring a lot of people over. He has told his people, in those states that are blue states, go ahead and vote for me. But in the states that are battleground states, he has taken his name off of the ballots, and he says, please vote for Donald Trump. They have talked together. He says they disagree on a number of important things. But here's the ticket. And this is how politics used to be. They agree more on some major ones, and that has to do with the government, attacks on our constitutional rights, health for children, and the border. Some very major things. Very major things. And what this made me now, I agreed with his uncle JFK on just about everything. Today, JFK would have been a conservative Republican, but RFK Jr., boy, he slammed the neocons. He's slamming these eternal wars. He told the truth. He told the truth about Ukraine and Russia. He told the truth. You want to hear the truth? If you don't know the truth, go find his speech. He tells the truth. He tells the truth about that. He tells the truth about the poisons in our food. He tells the truth about so many things. I still disagree with him on some things, but that's the way it goes. You get people who agree with you on the things that you want to get done so you can get them done. And one of the reasons that we are falling behind is all the people out there, these one-issue voters who say, well, I'm not supporting Trump because I don't like the fact that he doesn't like bump stocks. I'll never forgive him for that. That's important. We can't give an inch. You haven't helped that. Not you. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about that moron that I just quoted there. He hasn't done a thing for Second Amendment rights. But a lot of people have because they work politically. And that's why this judge says, hey, having a machine gun is not unconstitutional. Therefore, I am reversing these decisions. How about that? Did you ever think that we'd get to that point? Most people did. Okay. So the answer to the question that I asked first, are they stupid or are they evil? They are evil. The ones at the top are smart. The ones on the bottom are stupid. That's why they're so easily led. They're all emotional, but they are evil. How do we fight evil? We stand up against it. Two things to remember. God is the one who directs the war against evil. We have to be his soldiers in that. And then remember, because Edmund Burke told us, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men and women to do nothing. So, may I ask you what you're doing? Okay? You don't have to answer me. Answer it in your heart. Answer it to yourself. And if the answer is nothing, do something. And if the answer is something, let's all try to do more, okay? All right, I got to get out of here. It's going to be interesting times. It's good to talk to you all tonight. Remember that America needs a reversion. It needs you and me to all be a part of it. Let's get out there and do everything we can to get this guy. And by the way, these mugs are available on our website. If you want to help the cause, stonemont.us. Make America great again. And you missed me, suckers. I like those. You all have a good night, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.